Hey there viewers, thank you for tuning into Super Mario Diagnostics once again. Today we are doing an unboxing and possibly a full-on review video of the Micsig ATO1104. Just got it, and let's see what's in the box. So a little backstory, you guys who are early subscribers, you guys know that Micsig is what started it all for me. This was my very first scope that I ever bought, except this one is the automotive version. A little more into that backstory is that the first one that I got, I'm in Florida. It's friggin' hot out here, and now I'm in an AC cooled shop, but I wasn't before. And I was working outside one day, and the Micsig decided to crap out on me. The digitizer, I don't know, the screen started acting up. It started acting all funky. And since then, my brother moved to Colorado, and I told him, hey, go get it fixed. If you want it, get it fixed, and you can have it. I mean, it's yours. I since upgraded to the Pico scope, as most of you know, and the rest is history. But aside from that, I had pretty good experience with it. It taught me the hard way of doing things, in the sense that you have to do all the setup. It's not like the Pico, and this is not by any means a comparison to the Pico video, but I probably will be a little biased in my opinions whenever I'm saying something in comparison to the Pico. But like I said, this was my very first scope. That's a big deal to me. You guys know how much I love scopes. That's a pretty big deal for me. This was the one, after like a lot of research, I decided that's the one I want to get. Don't know what it retails for now, but the company that sent it to me, Micsig, decided, hey, we'll send you this, put out a video, be honest, and share the link on where to grab one. It's probably going to be the same place I bought it from. The link that I used a very long time ago, I think, expired, and they just start renewing them, and so I'm pretty sure it's the same vendor. But anywho, it'll be up to you if you want to go that route for your first scope. It is not a Pico scope. It is not a snap out scope. It's a Micsig. It's obviously Chinese made. You see that in the box, and it did me well. It did me well. I did have to be careful. I did put a screen protector, but anywho, let's get on with the unboxing itself. All right, so here we have it. That is the Micsig box. Pretty clean, pretty straightforward, nothing crazy. Let's go ahead and open this sucker up. It feels like if I was opening my first scope the very first time, I can't imagine how excited I was, but we'll try to relive that now. We've got our accessories in here, and we got the scope itself right here. And at the time, I was working at a very, very small shop, and I whipped this thing out. Shop owner tells me, what do you need that for? That's what they told me. What do you need that for? Yep. But who's laughing now? Look at this thing. Wow. It's been so long. Hasn't been that long. It's been at least 2 years, maybe a year, maybe 2 years. Yeah, it is the ATO. That wasn't there before on the first one, but yeah, it is an ATO. One thing to note on these that I've already experienced in the past is that these share a ground between all 4 channels. So you got to remember that. It's not like the Pico that you can have independent ground. So you can like have battery voltage here, ground voltage drop here, positive voltage drop here. You will have problems. You could probably do some damage if you end up doing that. But yeah, we're gonna boot it. Oh, it's a little different design here. We've got ourselves a power button on the right side, nothing on the left side. There are very, very tiny differences from that first one that I got, and hopefully it's more differences than that, but it's not like we're gonna open this sucker up and find out if there's any hardware differences, which I would doubt. But yeah, we've got an Ethernet port, we got a test little port right here so you could test your leads. You got an HDMI, mini HDMI out, a USB port for saving your waveforms, and a regular USB, micro USB port, and obviously your power supply port right there. Let's see if it has any juice in it. Probably not. Definitely not. It came totally dead. I don't know if that's any good for the battery, but I figured we'd probably have to charge it anyway. That's a good segue into opening up the accessory box. Man, it sure is nice to have a standalone scope. I gotta tell you, I mean, I love the Pico, but there's nothing like having, like, you guys have seen me use the U scope a lot because it's so portable, it's so easy to move around. But this thing, that's one of the things that I really liked about it to begin with. Oh, they tell you to scan this code for the manual. So yeah, scan that if you want to. Oh, and it comes with a screen protector now. That's pretty cool. Makes me want to do it right now, but I'm not going to for the sake of the video. We've got a calibration sheet and a quick start manual in Chinese. And yeah. Oh, this is new. This is definitely new. This didn't come with the original one. It's a nice addition to what we would normally get if we didn't have the automotive version. We got back probes. Man, I wish I would have had this stuff. I was using T-pins in those days. Nothing wrong with T-pins. You know, Scanner Nanner's a man. He was T-pin king. But yeah, it would have been nice to have some back probes back then. And we've got the caps, you know, so that our BNC ports are nice and protected. But yeah, we're gonna put that on soon. But man, that sure is nice that they have that little addition here now. Let's go ahead and get this thing hooked up so that we could see what it looks like once we juice it up, power it up. Good thing I didn't do this in the middle of my shop like I did another video. Let's go ahead and connect this. I don't remember what the battery life was on this thing, but it was enough. I'll tell you that much. Like, most laptops are 2 hours. You're going to be walking around with a battery. Oops. And this one, I believe, I want to say it was more than 2 hours for sure. We'll let it charge a little before we actually juice it up. We'll keep going with the accessories. I'm never going to use this bag again, so in the trash it goes. It comes with a nice little handle. I don't think it came with a handle before. Oh yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. For sure it did. I'm pretty sure I used it a lot. I do use the handle a lot. It's a nice little touch, you know. Pretty sure it's adjustable. Let's take a look. Yep, definitely adjustable. That's nice. I'm going to put that back there. We've got more alligator clips. That's cool. Oh man. You know, I was thinking about opening this box, and I had a feeling that I was gonna get those leads that it came with before. It's like those little hooks that you would like squeeze, like a syringe, in order to probe. I'm like, oh man, I had to go to AES Wave immediately and start buying those things. But yeah, we've got actual banana plugs. Are they high quality? I don't know. These are the first times that I see them. I personally had to upgrade my leads as soon as I got them because they started having contact issues inside. But we'll see if this thing stands up to the test of time. They look decent. They're very flexible. They're not ridiculously rigid, and it's a decent length. I would say that's about 4 feet long. So not a bad length. And of course it comes with 4 of them. Thank goodness. I'll probably be using my Pico leads anyway. This is what I first saw. This is what came with the first one. I chucked these as soon as I got them. Actually, I did some testing first and then I didn't like them, so I ended up chucking them. Let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. It comes with 2 of these. I don't know if these are high impedance probes or just regular probes. I forgot, but yeah, I'm probably never gonna use them. I'll be honest, probably never gonna use them. So let's put this box away. Let's see what we have here. Did it boot up yet? Got a blue light charging, blue light blinking. Come on now. Hey, if I have to stop this video and continue on with a fully charged battery, that's fine with me. Alright fellas, we are into the next day actually, and I decided to let this thing fully charge, and I still have it charging. That's fine. We're gonna go into some settings here. Figure we might as well start there. I like to put my brightness all the way up, my sound all the way down. I'm just gonna go through my preferences as I like them. May work out for you, may not. Shutdown time, this will actually turn off your entire system after a predetermined set of time. And we have USB settings. We can use it as test and measurement or a storage device. In other words, USB to output a signal to, say, a laptop or what have you, or use it as a storage device, putting a flash media in there. We could use LAN for Ethernet port. If you turn that on, you can connect wired, remotely but wired, and use the scope that way. I don't know that I would. You could do the same thing with the WLAN on this. This will hook up to the internet. The only problem is that the space button doesn't work, and the shop here has a space in the password, so putting in my password won't really work. So I instead use my hotspot, but nonetheless, I've got no problems with that. We could also use WLAN AP, which is the hotspot of this unit, in order to remote control this as well. For me, that's pretty useful because I could do some screen recording with it, and it'll look good on for you guys, for the audience. We also have an upgrade option. We have local upgrade, a UDISC upgrade, and network upgrade. I already checked. This is fully updated, and we have, you know, what the stuff that is installed and whatnot. So, yeah, it's a 100 megahertz bandwidth, and we're gonna go to the scope, which is really what you guys wanted to see, huh? So for starters, so those of you who don't know, you could, we're gonna just start from the beginning, I guess, you know. You may have some channels already open. It usually leaves you wherever you were before, but to turn on a channel, you have to click channel 1. I know it seems obvious, but to turn it off, you have to click it twice, right? So obviously, to change our voltage scale here is these, and this comes out to let you know where you are. We have the ability to invert. Now, the thing about the scope is that you have to learn how to set up your scope prior to capture. Or if you're using, like, let's say an ignition capture, you want to hone in on the perfect capture setup, you have to run the car, hone it in, you know, put your filtering, put invert if you want to, all that good stuff before. And like I have always mentioned to others, save your presets. I'll show you how to do that as well. So yeah, you have to put in your filtering. You won't know what kind of filtering you need until you see the signal and you start applying filter. You can't apply filter after the capture is done. Once you hit stop, that capture is exactly as it's captured. So you can't put invert, you can't put none of that. The only thing you could do is change the time base and the voltage scale. So let me see if I could zoom in real good in there, right? We're gonna hit stop. The only thing you could do after the capture is you could double tap and zoom in, right? So you decrease your time base. In other words, zooming in, but you're really changing the time base, unlike Pico, where you could zoom in without changing the time base, not a big deal. And then you could change your voltage scale as well after the capture. But I don't know that there will be anything else. We could try some other stuff real quick. I totally forgot, like, I might be going everywhere with this because, once again, I'm relearning this while doing a review video, but I've used this for over a year or two I would say maybe 3 to 4 years ago, if I truly remember correctly, maybe even 4 years ago. After the fact, that's going to happen every now and then. What I just did, I try to swipe down to get the menu, but instead it grabbed the capture and it put it down. The easy way to put that back to middle would be to hit this 50% button and hit channel 1, and it'll put it right there for you. Or you could drag it, you know, with the cursor. Up to you, but that's a nice little thing going on there. I haven't used these much yet, so I won't get into that. But what I was getting at was I want to swipe down from the top and see if we could add measuring. Let's see, low, max. So yeah, you can add measurements after your capture is done. So let me zoom you guys a little more in there. That way you can really appreciate the video. You can measure after the fact. I think you could put up to 10 parameters. We're just going to put a bunch in there. Yeah, 10 parameters max. And you could clear that easily with a clear button. And I do believe, though, that if you swipe up from the bottom, you could put measure all right there. So measure all, and it'll put everything it's got. Weird that it lets you only pick 10 parameters manually, but it lets you measure all. But it's nice. I guess once you memorize where they tend to be, you'll more easily find these measurements if you decide to use the measure all. While we're down here, we can see several different options. You could take a snapshot, zoom in. You could zoom in to the time base, right? So you could change your voltage scale, but you could also zoom in using the zoom feature. But I personally don't use that. Technically, this is zooming in without changing the time base. You're just, you know, yeah, this is a way to zoom in without changing the time base. You could let go of zoom and then go right back to where you were. So let's swipe up again. You could take a video recording here. And here is serial decoding, but I believe you need to, yeah, you need to open a serial channel in order for that to work. We'll get to that later in the video. Let's let go of serial decoding. We have cursors. Where will we be without our cursors, right? So you have to tap on the Y and then move it up and down. Y2, then move it up and down. You could hold it a little longer and it'll grab it. But if you hold the waveform, it'll bring it up and down. That is pretty neat when you think about a lot of scopes out there. They can't even do that. You can move it around. You know, that's not bad. You know, for the amount of money you're paying for this, it is not bad at all for a handheld unit. The only thing is that there's no pinch. You can't zoom in with the pinch. You can't zoom decrease your time base with pinch. But that's fine. I mean, it's their entry level, I guess. Well, it's not their totally entry level scope, but it is not their top tier scope for sure. But let's swipe up again, and we could put this cursor on as well. And the same rules apply. You tap on the X1 and 2 in order to move it around. But one thing that is definitely new that I didn't see before is this one here. We got ourselves a 720 degree, basically engine cycle ruler. So 720, you could put a 4-cylinder and bam, you got yourself, and you can move it around too. You got yourself the complete engine firing cycle. What's up?
You gonna work tomorrow?
Yeah. Where was I? We can move this around, and that's pretty neat. I don't think you could grab both of them at the same time. Doesn't matter. Just thought I'd try. Swipe up again, and we can clear that off. Now, if we go down our channel list here, we can also hit the down arrow, and it will show us different options. They have a math channel option. You go in there to change the options as well. I would probably use the channel 1 minus 2 for serial decoding or something like that, just for the heck of it. We have reference waveforms. We could, you know, save our reference waveforms. We'll show you how to do that as well. And we could post them back on. Actually, while we're on the subject, let's just do that. Let's go to save. and we could save to R1, right? And it automatically pulls it up for you. You could choose to turn it off. And yeah, turn it back on. You can actually manipulate it as well. Yeah. So reference waveforms are pretty nice. If we go to S1, I believe that stands for serial 1. We could choose the kind of bus that we're working on, and we could see what kind of signal it is: can high, can low, high minus low, low minus high, and the baud rate as well. I don't know if it'll pick it up automatically. I truly doubt it, but yeah, you're gonna want to get familiar with what your protocols and what kind of baud rate is involved in the network that you're scoping. But now that we have this channel open, we have a CAN bus channel open, we could swipe up the serial decoding option, and it will not tell you, oh, you need to have a thing open. In the future, once I start using this in future videos, we'll probably use that just to see what it could do. It would be nice to use that in, say, a parasitic draw test where a module is waking up the rest, and you might be able to identify which module it is by the ID. And but that's something I myself am still kind of new to. I haven't put it into practice fully yet, but we may get into that in the future using this scope, depending on where we go with it. So let's go back. S2 is just the same thing as S1, just a second option, second channel for it. Let's swipe down for our main menus, right? We learned how to save a reference waveform. Let's go to display. We have several different options under display. We have the common, and I like to enable my roll. So let's put this on, disable, and let's run our scope. And let's go to, you see, it'll show page by page. It won't roll, so to speak. So if I go to 1 second, it's going to be page by page. I personally can't stand that kind of a scoping, personally. If once we let it get down to the end, it will start a new page instead of just scrolling by. I don't care for that personally. That's something that Pico does because they have the ability to store pages, right? You can store the pages and that's it. But once you stop this scope, that's it. That's all you have. That's all that's stored. It's not like you could go to the next page. So once it's out of that page, you're done. It's out of the scope. It's out of the memory. You're not going to get it. So what I like about the roll feature is that once you enable it, it rolls. Let's put this in a slightly faster speed. Let's put it at 200 so you can see what I mean. It just continues rolling, right? So when you're capturing something and you're not using a trigger, but you still want to be in time, right? Like you don't want it to scroll past the screen and get lost forever, because if you stop this, once again, we can zoom in and we can zoom out, and everything that was out of the 200 milliseconds per division time base, it's lost. It's gone. You won't see it. So there are times where you're going to start the scope, let's say for a longer period of time, and you're going to want to, let's say, crank the engine, do a relative compression test. You're going to let it go. You're going to come back to the scope, and it'll be there. You could stop the scope, and the RC test will be right around here. But if you don't have the roll available, let's say you start cranking now, right? It's going to the next page. With the roll feature enabled, you can start cranking now, even though it's already rolling. Start cranking now, and it'll pick up. All you have to do is come back to the scope within 10 seconds of the entire time base that we have here, even though this is 1 second per division here. So the total of 10 divisions. Oh, wait a minute. This one actually has more. This has more than 10 divisions. This one has 14 divisions. I totally forgot about that. I'm so used to the Pico right now. But yeah, this has 14 divisions, so this is a 14-second time base here. Complete time base. And as long as you're within that, it'll show up in the frame. So that's, of course, if you're not using a trigger. That's just something you might want to consider when setting up your scope. I personally like to roll enable the scope. So as for the rest, I don't really mess with that. This is just to keep it simple, this is a video to kind of just get you going and keeping it simple. So we have the waveform. We could choose what kind of brightness we want this waveform to have. I like to have it personally full blast so that everything pops out, and especially in the sun. Sometimes I'm outside, you never know. If you have dots, it'll be a little different, it'll look a little different. Let me start the scope and you can see what I mean. Oh, by the way, the thing about the roll feature is that only happens at 200 milliseconds. Once you're at 100, it won't roll. It stays as a page. So this is at 200 milliseconds and longer, it'll roll. Just so you know that. And same thing with the trigger on these. I'll show that later. But yeah, basically, you're choosing whether to have dots or lines here. I personally like to use vectors. They call it vectors, I call it lines, it doesn't matter. Once you increase that brightness, it connects the dots for you, that's all it is. I've always been used to that. So let's go back to 200 milliseconds. By the way, you don't have to just keep tapping this thing. You could press the center and rotate that knob, so to speak, to kind of like give you a classic feel of you know, older scopes. But yeah, you can just this makes it a whole lot easier, better than tapping all the time. So yeah, graticule is the little dots that you see that show the divisions. So if you were to remove that, you would have nothing, you know. But I like to have it all the way. You have different options. You can figure that out. As for persist, this is something that I personally hate. And sometimes you may get a scope that the persist is on, and you're gonna see you won't know that you have persist on, and you'll get a waveform, and you're like, what is going on? Well, something's really wrong with this waveform. Let's go to auto, and let's decrease the time base. Then this thing could go down to 2 nanoseconds. Let's see if it'll show the persist. See, this is persist. It's basically like an echo. It's drawing the waveform and it's keeping it there. You know, this can be useful for other situations, and if you tune it right, you could have a triggered coil waveform, and you could show the actual waveform and the one behind it. So if you do it right, if you don't put infinite persist on here, if you put, you know, say, let me see what would be a good, see right there on the 1 second for this particular setup, we're seeing 1 and the one behind it. So you always have 2 waveforms on the screen. So that may be useful to compare the very last one. So it may work out for you, it may not. I personally like it. Persist, none. Just give me what I got and that's it. You know, if you want to use that echo effect, so to speak, go ahead and do it. But for the most part, I leave it on off. Going to the trigger. I mean, it's a trigger. If you don't know what a trigger is, this is probably the wrong video for it, because this is a review video and not necessarily on a video on how to use triggers, what triggers are and this and that. But yeah, there's common triggers for this scope. Let me see if we could put one on. You can see the level for the trigger right here, right? You'll always see that if you have a trigger. Let me see something here. So the trigger, and I could be wrong, but in my experience, the trigger has always been at 100 milliseconds or less. That's when the trigger shows up. There may be another setting that I don't know about that you can set up the trigger to come up past 200 milliseconds, but I haven't seen it. It only happens during very fast captures, 100 milliseconds and lower per division. So yeah, just thought you should know that. Let's scroll down again. We have auto. Guys, I'll tell you right now, I hate the auto feature, and I'll show you why. I don't care for it at all. I try my best never ever to use the auto feature. When you hit that auto button, which is very, very tempting, there are a couple of things that happen. The thing about the auto feature is that it does some things that I don't like, but before I could get to that part, I need to show you something else. That is the user set. So before I get to the auto, let's jump through frequency meter. That's super simple. You could put a frequency meter, no big deal. But on the user set, we could go to depth. This is showing the memory of the scope. This is how much you're going to be using, the resolution and all that, and the depth. When you hit auto, right now I have it on the maximum setting. I learned this the hard way. When you put it on the smallest setting, you're decreasing your resolution. This is the maximum setting, and it may require you to add some filtering to your captures, but I like to have maximum resolution regardless whether I have to filter or not. But once you hit auto, there are a couple of things that happen. That depth goes to auto, which usually is not the highest resolution. You know, this is not the highest available resolution. When you hit auto, it's going to go to something else, and your waveforms are going to look funky. There's something else that happens that I don't like. On some of them, I've seen that the persist goes to auto, but this time it stayed on none. And some of them, your roll will disable as well. So I personally don't like the auto button. I would resist hitting that button because it'll just, take you away from what you're doing already, the capture that you're already working on and that you've set up for, and it'll do some things that may not be favorable to you. So in my experience, it's always been, do not hit that auto button. I think, even though you might be a beginner, it is up to you to learn the scope through and through, and not letting the scope do all the work for you. That's why you never see me post Pico scope videos in which I show the presets and this and that. I personally don't care for presets because either way, I like to make my own presets. And yeah, we have a factory reset options. We have a self-adjust in which you put the probe on and it will calibrate itself. You put the probe onto the side here. I'm not going to show that now. I think I mentioned it earlier though. We go to save and recovery. Oops. We go to save and recovery, and we can see I already set up a home setup that I like to use. It's just a simple setup for say battery voltage or something like that. It's predictable. I like to make my own presets. I don't like to do the scope usually doing the work for me. Even though that's one of the selling points of this particular unit. This is the automotive version, and yeah, I'm not gonna inverse colors or put timestamp on stuff. One of the selling points of this scope is that it has an automotive feature laid into it. So when you hit that car button right there, you have several options depending on the system. So starting and charging will show you all of these options, and it will set you up. It will not only let you know how to set it up, but it will also set up the time base and the voltage scale for you along with the trigger, which can be nice, I guess, but like I said, it's really up to you to learn how to set it up yourself. Now, I haven't checked, but I wonder if it changed any of my settings yet. Let's go to depth, and look, we're on the lowest resolution. And I get it. They probably do that for the noise, less noise. There's a lot of scopes out there that don't have that much resolution, and it's basically a good way to keep noise out. But me personally, I don't like to miss anything. I'd rather filter it. That's really a matter of preference, but that can be good at times. Let's see if anything else changed. My persist is on none. my roll has been disabled. Let's see if I go back. It doesn't come back to enable or anything like that. So one thing to keep in mind is using these presets. It may be a good idea to use these presets, but you might want to fine tune it to your liking after you hit that preset. It would be kind of nice if you can say, oh, I want to check 12 volt charging, right? And then press OK. But once you press OK, it sets you up. Let's say you make some changes and you want to save that under that preset. It would be nice if they gave you 2 more buttons. One, save preset that you just set up, and also restore default. That would be pretty cool. But obviously that's kind of reaching there. But yeah, I think it would be nice if you could modify these presets that they made for you and have the option to save it or restore it back to default. So yeah, I won't go through each one. Like, you could pause it, take a screenshot and zoom in. You could see the different things that they let you check. Check. I mean, they'll tell you how to hook it up, set up the time base and voltage scale for you. There's camshaft. Let's see what kind of setup do they have for you. No roll. And I guess all of them, they do it at the smallest amount of resolution. But hey, like I said, that can be good. But yeah, just keep in mind, this is the automotive version. The point is for them to have these presets for you. And I don't think it's a bad thing at all. It actually gives you different, even different manufacturers. That's pretty cool. You got multi-point, single point, injectors. That's interesting. So go to ignition. You got different options there. Networks, kind of high and low. It'll show you how to do it. Yep. Combination test. Maybe you want to check cam and crank. Pressure testing. In cylinder. Let's go to in cylinder. I love that stuff. So there's a kPa, there's a kilopascal option here. One of the things we kind of like glossed over is that there's different options, right? They show you how to set up for voltage. They give you the option for secondary ignition, the compensation, the filtering, the signal, whether it's DC or AC, and the sample. For current, they give you some presets here, which is pretty nice. They actually give you the 1 millivolt for the 10 milliamp. That's pretty cool. And you can also choose to have 10x instead of going by the proportions here. It's nice to have that 2 options there. It'll pick it out for you, which is a good teacher as well. Like, if you're not really good at doing the conversion from 1 millivolt to 10 milliamps, once you hit that button, it'll tell you that it's a 10x conversion, 10-time conversion. If you're looking at your meter, let's say I got a meter here. I've got this meter here, and it is a 100 millivolt for 1 amp. We don't have 100 millivolt for 1 amp, but this is a terrible example, but they actually give you the model numbers of the ones that work. They give you some quick model numbers, but basically we are doing 100 to 1. I'm sorry, 0.1 to 1. It's 100 millivolts for 1 amp. So that would come out to a 10x. So that would leave us with 1 volt equaling 10 amps. So that's a 10-time conversion. Anyway, that wasn't the point of this section, but just thought I'd share that anyway. Going to pressure, which was the point, That's pretty cool. They give you a little conversion here. It's not perfect, but I guess it's nice. You could put, you know, say, I've got a transducer here. Say the WPS. Shout out to Jarhead Diagnostics, by the way, for hooking me up with this nice little cover. It's a rugged cover. I put it on and never looked back. I gotta give it to him. Anywho, there are some conversions here. Say the WPS 500, we have 1 volt for 100 psi. So you could put 0. It'll show you 0 equals negative 15, and 100. I'm sorry. What am I saying? 0 equals 0 volts, and 5 volts would equal 500 psi. So, yeah. And if you change the range, then you can do that accordingly with no problem. So, 1 volt for every 10 psi, this would be 0 volts equals 0 psi, and 5 volts would equal 50 psi. So, but it's kind of weird. The WPS does something a little different. I don't know that if you put 0 here, you may want to start off in the negatives, is what I'm getting at. So I don't know that if it went into vacuum, it would cut you off, or if it would just compensate accordingly. So that's something that we should definitely try out in the future. And it does let you to AC couple this, so I mean that could be useful. I wouldn't use that much, even because the piezoelectric sensors already AC couple the signal for you. But yeah, I don't know that I have anything else to show you on this one. I think we just about hit every possible aspect already. I will say this: it is a very capable scope, and we're going to be using it. I guess we'll leave it at that. This is going to be a review video. This is a very capable scope that we're going to be using in future videos as long as it survives. I've already had to put it into the heat. I was able to use it once, and it held up nicely, but we'll see how it does in the long run, and we're going to keep it honest. If this thing dies on me, you guys will be fully updated. But it's nice to see that the company reached out and they're being supportive. If I have any questions, or if any of the buyers have any questions, you can reach out to Micsig. Me particularly, I speak to John Chan, and he's been very helpful already. He's already one of the things that he helped me out with was the remote control. So right before I finish off this video, I'm going to show you one more thing. And I know it'll probably sound stupid to some of you guys, but I didn't know it. When I went into the remote control, I hooked up my phone to the scope, right? So what you're supposed to do is turn it on, and that'll come up on your options here, right? And we're gonna let it come up, and any day now we'll be able to see the scope. There it is. Bam. Right? In order to remote control this thing, or project whatever, we go to info, and you're supposed to input the IP address into the app, right? If you go to the app, it'll show up. Oh, look, it hooked up automatically, but right here it'll show IP address. What I didn't know was that you're supposed to use not the configuration, the IP address. You're supposed to use the router address. So just keep that in mind. That's something you're not going to want to forget, and something that I learned the hard way. And thanks to supportive companies, hopefully they continue to be supportive, because like I said, we've had our thing in the past where the last one died, and I had to upgrade, but hopefully they change that around and they're supportive. If any of you own one of these, feel free to share your experiences, and feel free to reach out if you ever have any issues. We'll put you in touch with somebody who can actually help you at Micsig. And truth be told, if there is a company that that shows to be a company that doesn't back their product, yeah, we're not gonna put up with that. But yeah, we'll see where this goes. So far, so good with these guys. I'm happy they changed their mind, and I hope they continue to be continue to put the customers first.